weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. Today is Wednesday, July 17th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, and I'm just so glad to have you back, Mark. Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson is in the house. Hey, Mark.
I am back, Jeff. I've missed, what, 3 weeks? Did I miss 3 weeks?
It felt like forever.
Well, part of that was a scheduling issue. I was actually working most of that week. And then last week I was gone on vacation. And actually the week before, I guess I was kind of half gone.
Mark does this, though, during summer times. I'm sure if you're an avid viewer, you see Mark kind of disappear during the summer.
But look what I have. Check this out, Jeff. Remember that I had that lighting above that looked like Blair Witch Project? I got a new $35 Ring camera. You know, I don't pay for like the $70 one. And I can adjust my color. What do you think? Is it this color?
Ooh.
Okay, that's A.
That's your summer tan.
B. This one is
winter. I'm not getting any sun exposure skin.
Or C.
Kind of springtime.
A. Yeah. B, or C? What do you think?
C.
Oh,
more natural.
Okay, so we'll stay with C.
Yeah.
And I know my camera is a little bit too high, so we're going to work on that. We're always looking for the perfect setting. It's all about the looks, the sound. But yeah, I'm here, and I think we're good. Not too many issues.
I think people just want to hear your voice and your expertise, and it's good to have you back, Mark. Yeah, because
it's nice to be back. And Jeff, I haven't seen you for a while, so that's good.
Yeah, this is a good time for us to catch up. We won't share all the details about our lives in the middle of the podcast, but before and after, plenty of that going on.
You mean my injury?
Yeah, your injury. Yeah, what the heck happened?
Folks, don't put a handlebar through your lower abdomen in your nether regions. That's bad. Things are better now, but it was scary for a short time when my son and I were mountain biking 7 miles away from the nearest help. And I had a handlebar. I think it hit a tree mountain biking and went right down there. It was in that area, but it wasn't there. But then lots of swelling, lots of black and blue. The black and blue is all gone. Everything seems better, except I might have something that needs some medical attention down there. So we'll see. I mean that too dramatic. I'm sorry. I might have like some sort of hernia or something. Okay.
Well, now you shared everything, so thank you, Mark.
Did I violate HIPAA for myself? I don't know.
Before the podcast, Mark was like, I'm probably not going to share too many details, but he spilled the beans, folks. He may have a hernia, so something I don't want to experience.
I have an appointment tomorrow. We'll see. So enough of my medical issues, but
we'll get a follow up on that next week at the podcast. Actually, you may not even be. Are you going to be gone again? Let's be honest.
No, I'm here next week.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. I have to work 4 days next week.
Don't make me do a solo podcast again. Actually, no, that went fine.
I heard it was good. You know what? I listened to the first 10 minutes or so, Jeff, and you sounded great. And then I heard Camilla, by the way, the ladies can't make it today, just by chance. Summertime schedules are extra sketchy,
they are crazy,
as we say. But we're up to 109. Look at that.
We are. And that's not the temperature. That's episode 109.
Yeah, that's good. Very good.
All right. So a lot to go over in the forecast, or the podcast, rather. We had some thunderstorms yesterday afternoon, evening, overnight, and into this morning, and there are still some thunderstorms out around the Pacific Northwest. We won't have an updated radar. That's what the Fox 12 weather app is for. Download it, click the radar feature, you'll see where they are. So we'll go over some of the stuff that happened. Warmest start to July. Man, do we need to go over some numbers? We're now 16 days through the month of July, and wait till you see what we got to show you. Fire season continues. Mark has some cool graphics on that. Not so exciting the way that things are trending. Cooler weather in sight. Cooler in quotes-ish.
A little.
I mean, compared to what we've had. And then we all obviously have some viewer photos to show you, which is a thing in the podcast that we like to do. So if you're new to the podcast, we like to announce this at the beginning every time. You should watch the podcast because we show some cool graphics, and you don't get to see those if you're just listening in the car or something like that.
And you don't get to see our smiling faces now properly lit.
That's right. All right, we're starting off on infrared satellite imagery. This was early this morning, Mark. I was sitting in the studio.
Ooh, it's pretty.
Getting the forecast going around 2 a.m. and pretty obvious where that shortwave trough was. It was situated basically over southwest Oregon, and it was sending some showers and thunderstorms and a lot of clouds. That's what you're seeing on the graphic here over northwest Oregon, central Oregon, and into southern Washington.
Oh, man, Jeff, when you look at that, excuse me, it's early for me. When you look at that as a meteorologist in the Pacific Northwest, after the overall the decades forecasting, that is the pattern to give us thunderstorms west of the Cascades. When
No
you
doubt.
see that curl, that look at the southeasterly flow coming up in the upper levels of the atmosphere. That is, I think, almost every overnight thunderstorm outbreak I've seen here west of the Cascades. That's the setup, almost always.
I've got something so cool to show you.
Ooh, okay.
Look at this. Okay.
Ooh, look at
All
that.
right.
Multispectral.
Yes. Okay. So this is the nighttime microphysics channel, Mark. I use this in the mornings to show the low clouds and fog along the coast. Check out what we caught on that loop. So you have the upper level low that I just showed you. Those are like the red shades, the
Right.
taller clouds. Look what was going on down at the surface, right along the California and Oregon border. So I think we're seeing the surface low and the upper level low kind of stacked.
Nice.
Isn't that kind of neat?
You can also see the low clouds spreading into the South Valley as those thunderstorms move north, or at least as the showers, maybe not thunderstorms, move north.
This is a perfect example of how the atmosphere is kind of like a layered cake. I mean, you've got, and
Right.
when we talk about low pressure, we can have a surface low, which is what you see there, and an upper level low, and they were not stacked vertically perfectly on top of each other. This was like a tilted system, which they tend to be fairly tilted.
That's nice, Jeff. Impressive.
I thought it was pretty cool. Unfortunately, Mark, there were a lot of lightning strikes overnight. Yeah, actually, since yesterday afternoon, I saw that you pushed something out to our weather app late day yesterday with some
multiple
thunderstorms.
times. I should point out on our weather app multiple times. I think I had a 9:30 one as well. Just want to point that out for the boss.
By the way, if you if you have our app and you've had any lightning strikes within the vicinity of your house and settings are turned on to your location, you probably got notifications that lightning was happening near your home or even heavy rain. So this was 8 o'clock yesterday evening, Mark. There were lightning strikes around the southern and central Willamette Valley, parts of the Coast Range, Cascades, Oak Ridge. I think of Oak Ridge and I think of, man, now I'm blanking on the fire that was up there a couple of years ago.
Was it Cedar Creek?
Cedar Creek fire, I believe so.
Yes.
Maybe it was.
Last year. Or was that 2 years? It's coming up on 2 years.
The air quality was horrible up there. So you hate to see lightning strikes during this time of year up in the Cascades. So that was 8 o'clock. What I did, Mark, was I kind of created snapshots of where we saw clusters of thunderstorms and lightning strikes. That way we can kind of mentally think about where fires may show up, because sometimes it takes days for fires to show up after lightning hits. Those are called holdover fires. So that was 8 o'clock yesterday. 9 o'clock yesterday evening, we had some lightning out just west of Corvallis. I'll go back.
I was just going to say, I should point out, so I was on the air from 8 to 11:30 straight during those hours. And you're right, it kind of died down by 9:30 to 10. I'm like, it's getting kind of quiet now. But then...
Bingo. There were more lightning strikes out towards Sweet Home, west of Santan Pass. So that was around, 11 o'clock. Then this was at midnight or so. We had some thunder and lightning up near Detroit Lake.
Just where we don't want to see it.
I know.
And the west slopes of the Cascades and the Cascades.
This was while I was sitting in the studio this morning, Mark. And if anybody follows me on social media or follows the Fox 12 Instagram page, you probably saw a video that we posted between 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock this morning, Mark. There were tons of lightning strikes around Walport and Newport. We actually caught I caught 12 or so of them on our Newport camera, kind of just rolling for about a half an hour or so intermittently. And then I put the video together. So it was a light show out there. Luckily, that's not a high fire danger zone along the immediate coastline. This was around 3 a.m. this morning. Just east of Madras, there was some lightning, some clusters of thunderstorms developing. 4 a.m. this morning, unfortunately, there were some thunderstorms out in a very dry part of the state in north central Oregon. There's actually an existing fire just east of Condon right now that's burned over, I think, 60,000 acres. So there was, and it's ongoing, Mark. So when I was just on air from 9 to 10 this morning, and there were thunderstorms developing over the east end of the gorge and a few lightning strikes on the east side of the state. So we're not done. So
I did look because I did look because I wanted to see what passed over the metro. And sure enough, about 2:30 a.m., a little line of showers passed over. But so those did not produce any lightning, right?
No, I was watching those closely because I was I was getting ready for work and I had my phone out watching, and I was like, I got to get in and get the camera set up and everything. I was just not sure if they were pointed in the right direction. Watched that kind of fizzle out. There was lightning strikes southeast of the metro. Then it just died out. I think PDX picked up a trace of rain. It wasn't even measurable rain.
I left my windows on a night like that. Plus it was really warm, so I had the windows wide open, the blinds wide open, because I want to wake up if I see a flash, like any good weather geek. Like, hey, I got to see it, and then nothing happened. I kept waking up. I felt nothing, and then I checked the radar about 3, and yeah, so I saw nothing here either, east side of the metro.
I bet you're a little relieved not having any lightning around your part of the forest.
Well, yes, but I mean, a good thunderstorm is fun.
Us weather nerds want to see the thunderstorms. I totally agree. But it's like, gosh, when you get into how dry the forests are, those kind of stats, that's why, I worry about it. So this was, we're going to have a series of viewer photos, but I just wanted to include a couple at the beginning of the podcast. This was sent in by Stuart out in Independence. This was yesterday evening. Kind of cool with the sun setting, the light, the clouds turning pink there, and a little bit of lightning up there as well. And then this was sent in by Tina out in Halsey. And those are cloud-to-cloud lightning strikes. Yeah, it kind of looks like spider webs. So always appreciate you sending in your photos. KPTV.com/weather. There's a submit photos tab. That's the best way for us to receive your photos.
Jeff, I got 2 points. One is that before we get into the hot stats, that I pointed out on the air several times last night, when we had the most action out over the offshore waters and the coastline in places where it was like 50, 55 degrees. That to me says, hey, this is not about what's going on. This is not about, when we think about thunderstorms, we think about, it gets hot in the afternoon, the clouds build, the moisture goes up, and then around sunset, the storms die down. That's pretty typical, based on the daytime heating. These were not based on the daytime heating. You had big thunderstorms over a strong inversion out over the coastline. So it's all about the lifting as that upper level shortwave moves across. And that's why it's so easy to get the nighttime thunderstorms in that case.
Elevated convection. And I'm sure it helps a little bit having that strong high pressure system nearby too, because we did have a warm atmosphere in the mid levels. So obviously cooler up top. So there was that shallow thunderstorm or set of thunderstorms that formed. But yeah, plenty of lift with that shortwave. That was pretty impressive. We're not done with that just yet.
And then one more thing real quick. Yeah. So, and this came up, we just had our company's Gray Corporation. We just had a call and we were talking about different issues. And if you have hopefully you have our radar app, I think, will this focus in? Let's see if I can get to focus in. Yeah, that's not.
It's all right.
Right here. So if you're looking at our radar app, you can't quite see it. It'll say right here, you'll go either past and future, or past only. For real radar data, you must be on past. Past means we're working on getting this changed, but in other parts of the country, they have huge issues with the viewers saying, if you put it on future and it says now, it still says now, but future, the problem is now is just whatever, it's all modeling data. So it's guessing where the showers and thunderstorms are. So if you want to see real radar data, what's going on right now and what's happened like the last hour or two, make sure you're on past. Then if you want to go to future and poke around and see, okay, what are the models thinking? Then you can look at it. But make sure you're on past, or otherwise it may show showers that don't exist, or there may be a big thunderstorm over you and it doesn't see that because that's just modeling data. So just a little tip for our app.
Oh, great tip. And I highly suggest downloading our weather app, because we may not be done with thunderstorms over the next week. There are some signs that something might be brewing this weekend. So warmest start to July. Man, oh man, has it been warm. Let's be honest. It's been hot in our western valleys. So let's get right into the stats here. We were talking about it last week, and we're just kind of piggybacking off of it. We'll start off with Portland, PDX. We're showing you just kind of how the month has played out so far. Here's a column showing high temperatures through July 16th, low temperatures, the average of the two, and then the departure, how we've been, comparing to normal for this time of year. Mark, we are averaging a high temperature right now through the first 16 days of the month of 92 degrees at PDX.
That's like, that's more like Medford or even farther south.
Or Central Oregon.
That's even high for the Dalles.
Yeah.
This would be a warm July for the Dalles, but we're west of the Cascades in Portland.
We're averaging a low of 61. I know that doesn't sound all that warm, but think about it. That means a lot of the nights have been in the 70s, and then we briefly drop into the 60s. Departure from normal. We're running over 7.5 degrees above a typical first half of July, and we've had no measurable rainfall thus far. So this is how the average looks compared to the warmest July starts in Portland. So this is the top 5 through the first 16 days, and we're running over a degree above 2015, which was a hot July. You were here, Mark. You experienced it.
Yeah, 2015. Actually, now I'm getting old because I remember every one of these. But well, most are pretty recent, though, right? 2015. 2015 was where we had a long, extended event, kind of like this, where it went on for about 2 weeks. We didn't stay above 90 every day, but it was close, or up around 100. But yeah, late June, early July. 2023. That was last year. Wow. And then 1985 for years was kind of the bellwether of like, okay, how hot can it get here? That was a really hot July. But now we've passed that by 3 degrees.
So 4 of the top 5 warmest Julys through the first 16 days happened in the past decade.
And before somebody says, oh, well, that's just the urban heating. Actually, some of it is. But Astoria, it's also the warmest July on record. There's no urban heating going on at the Astoria airport. So that's at the North Coast. And I think Redmond is running this as of 2 days ago, Redmond is running number 2, and it's number 4 at Pendleton, Baker City, and Burns. So it's stinking hot everywhere, but we'll see how the rest of the month goes here.
Totally. All right. So 16 days through the month of July, Portland has had 10 days at and above 90 degrees. The most 90 plus degree days that we've had in the month of July was back in 2018. We had 15 days that featured temperatures at and above 90 degrees. So we have about half the month left, Mark. We're likely to end up in the top 2 or so, I would say.
I think so. Let's see, we've got, well, we'll see about the next few days and Saturday.
I also wrote down, because I was curious, how many 100-degree days have we had? We've had 3 100-degree days, 100-plus degree days in Portland. That's second place already through the first half of the month. Though the most 100-degree days that we've experienced in the month of July happened in 1941. We had 5. So 2 more, and we're tied for most 100.
Hopefully not.
Days. All right, here's where things get a little more interesting, Mark. Look at Salem. Salem is averaging a high temperature of 95 degrees, averaging a low of 59, and that's not as, you don't have as much of the urban heat island effect happening down there. So nearly a 60-degree average for the overnight temperature, or the nighttime low. They are running 9+ degrees above a typical start to July.
And look at so the heat wave never stopped at Salem, technically, right? 90 or higher for how many days? I'm sorry, today is the day, isn't it? Or what was yesterday the day? 13 days is their all-time record for 90-degree day. 1, 2.
It's been 12, right?
No, yesterday was 13.
Oh, no, 13. You're right.
So yesterday tied. If Salem gets above 90 today, it'll be a new record for a number of 90-degree days.
It will. I can almost guarantee it. We'll see. I don't want to guarantee anything.
I have a day off today. I mean, I do this because it's fun. But yeah, you're right. We did go for about 90, didn't we? We'll see how much of that cooling in the valley affects it.
Started off pretty cool down there, 50s. But anywho.
By the way, I'm sorry, one more little thing to add. That Salem sensor, remember early in the month, or was it at the end of June where the Salem sensor disappeared? They had issues. And then it was too hot. And not during this current warm spell, but then what they did, if I'm correct, they took Scapoose's temperature sensor and put it down in Salem. I think because they figured, sorry, Scapoose, but it was more important to get that Salem, climate record there. We love Scapoose.
Well, all I got to say, Mark,
Scapoose.
I had to take a pause, and I can't wait to get back to my flight training. But my first solo flight was at Scappoose Airport.
Scappoose Industrial Airport,
where I flew by myself. My instructor sat on the runway. It's important to have weather data out there.
You think?
Totally.
I think so.
So a lot of pilots are kind of bummed about that. I think I even got an email in about where's that weather sensor. But it's more important to have it in Salem because we've been keeping track of temperatures down there since 1892.
Yeah, long climates. And I'm sure the FAA will get it fixed. I think it's the FAA, not the Weather Service.
I think so.
Don't complain to us is what I'm saying. We don't know what's going on in Scappoose.
All right, I teed it up, Mark. I said things are going to get interesting here. Look at how temperatures, look at the average temperature through the first 16 days for Salem between the highs and lows. They're averaging a temperature rather, overall temperature of 77 degrees. Look at second place. They're running over 3 degrees above second place, which was 1906. That is like, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot. 3 degrees doesn't sound like a lot for the layperson, but we are smashing records down there.
It's been really hot, pretty much unprecedented hot in the Central Valley.
Well, Mark already said it. 13 consecutive days now at and above 90. I was just counting the amount of days that have been at and above 90, and Salem is already in the top 5 for most 90+ degree days.
Wait a minute, I don't understand. So they've had more than 17 days. Oh, I'm sorry. This is July only, not the whole summer.
All of July. Yeah.
Okay.
For the month of July.
I apologize.
All right, you want the most interesting stat of all, Mark?
What is the most interesting stat, Jeff?
Salem has already recorded the most 100-degree days in the month of July on record. 6 days. They've never done that before. The previous record was 2022. They had 5 days at and above 100 degrees. And we have half the month left to go. So it's been an incredible day or month so far in heat in the Willamette Valley, especially in the Central Valley.
I miss the good old days growing up I grew up about 15 miles from Salem at Mount Angel area, and you have 100 once in a while, but that was it. It was better before the climate warmed.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of leads into our next topic, which is fire season continues. We can talk about forest management. I know that's a common argument. Like,
right.
We have a lot of fires and they get huge because of poor forest management. But,
right.
The weather and the climate do dictate to a certain degree how dry things are and our fire danger, of course.
Right.
So, if we have a hotter than normal and a drier than normal spring and summer, then our forests dry out faster. The evaporation rates are increased, and not to mention, if you have lightning around, well, that's a natural cause of wildfires too, and that's something we can't control. But, lightning in a very dry forest can lead to wildfires, and that's kind of out of our hands too. So the warming conditions lately have led to very dry weather and dry conditions rather in our forests. And Mark, you have actually some stats on that, which we'll get into. Just wanted to point out visible satellite imagery. This is the regional view. You can see all the smoke out there in the interior Northwest over Idaho. That's honestly been the case for several days now. Generally our wind moves from west to east. So if any fires are burning in Oregon or Washington or Northern California, generally that smoke goes off to the east in the interior Northwest. So it's probably going to be a pretty tough rest of the summer, air quality wise, for areas like Idaho, Western Montana, even Nevada.
It's just starting really early this year. That's the problem.
It is. And there's that short wave. You can see very distinct. This was more updated satellite loop. This is visible satellite imagery with clearing skies in the Willamette Valley.
By the way, Jeff, you like to use the term shortwave. I'm not saying that's good or bad necessarily, but people may not know what that is. We're talking about troughs and the dips in the flow in the atmosphere. A long wave trough is where there's a big, there's a big kind of upper level system covering the Pacific Northwest that sits here. Those are called long wave troughs. They're long waves in the atmosphere. And short wave just means it's a short little wiggle in the atmosphere.
It's a great explanation. Assessment? And we're actually going to show you a long range trough that's going to come into play hopefully next week that could help to cool us down a bit. All right, Mark, let's talk fire season.
And these numbers are from yesterday. They've changed slightly. So we have 7 large fires in Oregon. I think it's 8 and 4 now, or it's 6 and 4, but 2 in Washington. Large fires are defined by 100 acres or more in forested area or 1,000 acres or more in grassland, because in far eastern Oregon, you can suddenly get a 50,000 acre fire that just roared through grassland, maybe not as impactful. And the largest fire is kind of within our viewing area. Now these numbers are up. I think that's now 90,000 acres north of Burns, the Falls fire. That's put out quite a plume over the last few days. That's north of Burns, between Burns and Seneca.
Right.
Burning in forest land there. Lone Rock fire. I think this may have been more in open grassland or wheat fields at first, southeast of Condon. It looks like it's kind of up partway into the Blue Mountains now, 52,000 acres. So what's ahead the next? Oh, well, we already know this part. Fuels are near driest on record for mid-July. So I think I have one more graphic here. Yeah, so I think this is most interesting. Did I just bury the lead? We've already burned more acreage this year as of mid-July versus last year. 31% of the average is kind of a 10-year average of how much acreage burns in the Pacific Northwest. And you can see some of those previous years there. But we've had 365,000 acres. And actually, I think that's probably closer to 400,000 by today. And last year we only had 300,000 acres burned.
Yeah.
So you can see last year was kind of a slow season. We talked about that, we kind of, dodged a bullet.
2019 was the last year.
Weather-wise, I should say.
2019, 249,000 acres. So that was in the past, handful of years, that was our, I guess you could call it, best fire season with the least amount of acreage burned. And that was the last time that we stayed below 100 during a summertime in Portland. So It's probably a cooler summer than what has been happening recently.
And I looked for this picture because I was on for 3.5 hours last night. I started, killing some time here. And I remember this one after we had an event like what we had last night, Jeff, back in 2014. This was the view looking from Timberline Lodge south to Mount Jefferson. I just remember this view. We had a westerly flow has returned for a while, but look at all the little or larger fires burning between Mount Hood and Mount Jefferson, and they were trying to put those out. And some of those I think burned for quite a while, but we could see something like that in the next few days because this is a setup, as I recall. We went back to hot weather again immediately following a lightning event. I find that that's always the worst.
Yep.
And I think you're going to cover this, but that may happen again Saturday night or Sunday. Maybe we may get another little system dropping more lightning in. So just an example of what could happen or what we could be looking at. So bad stuff here.
These fires can kind of smolder and stay hidden in our forest areas for days on end. And then all of a sudden when it gets really hot, sunny, the air turns more unstable. And then all of a sudden they pop up and the smoke plumes do as well.
Next. Oh, I just want to say next. I had a art teacher once. She would she'd have this big stick and she would smash it down on the table when she wanted the next graphic. But I won't do that, Jeff. But thank you Jeff is running the graphics here. So a lot of lines, a lot of colors. What's going on here? This is energy release component, one index that the fire forecasters use to indicate basically how much could fires take off on a certain day, certain situation. So let's see, I'm trying to make this simple. The deep red line is where we have been up till today, which is, this is actually from yesterday, from till mid-July. That's now where Jeff is pointing to. The blue line is the forecast. We're covering the zone 2, which kind of covers Northwest Oregon and Southwest Washington. It also goes out into the Coast Range. All right. I think that's why there's a little dip here over the next few days. But what this shows is the thinner red line where you see the top there. It's most of the time it's at the top, right? The thinner red line. That's the maximum ever observed on any one date from early June to the end of August. So you can see what that heat wave did starting around the 3rd of July until just a few days ago. Man, we went from slightly below average. And by the way, the average is in the middle of all those little bars. Yeah, blue line is the average. We went from a little below average, okay, close to average, to bang, highest ever energy release component observed in early to mid-July. So the forest dried out really rapidly. We've come down slightly. We're still right near the highest ever observed on this date. Should stay in that range as well. So pretty interesting stuff. That's one way to look at fire danger. So folks, and you look all the way over to the right, the energy release component on average does gradually go up through the summer, and then it kind of ends up you see around the 30, the average, the blue line there, kind of lingers around 30 from late July to late August. Each year it's going up and down as we get hot spells and cool spells, or even a shower.
It's interesting.
So we are set up right now as if it's mid-August. I think that's fair to say from this chart. Okay, here's another way to look at it, the 1,000-hour fuel moisture. So these are the big fuels. I think it's 8 inches or larger logs or wood. It takes a while to dry out, right? So typically those dry out during the season, but you can see what happened again during that heat wave. This covers the same time period. It went very low, and now it's the lowest. Is that right? Yeah, the lowest on record in this area.
Basically means our fuels are super dry.
They are, which is interesting. Super dry, extra dry. And that little dash line there, significant fire threshold, the dash line, if it's below that, basically fire weather forecasters say, hey, if a fire gets going, it could really take off.
Well, and at this point, the only things that are going to moisten things up are a big rain or super high humidity for days on end. But that even would be slow to, moisten things up like our vegetation. So, I mean, we're probably going to be staying pretty low for the next month and a half at least, if not longer. So. Right. Oh boy. Well, there are some positives in the forecasts. We're going to try to find those for you at least, even though it's been really warm and it's going to stay warm or hot during the afternoons for the next 5 days or so. Let's get into the forecast. We're taking you wider now to the West Coast and the Eastern Pacific Ocean. And this is what has been going on. Mark, can you see the cursor?
Oh, yes, I can.
So you can see the clouds generally are moving from south to north.
We like to do that in every podcast. Say, and the ladies pointed that out. That I always say, "Can you see my cursor?" So I want to make sure. I want to make sure we get that into every podcast. Can you see me now? Can you hear me now?
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So it's pretty obvious that we have high pressure building aloft because the clouds are getting diverted up to the north. You have generally clear skies over the western United States. And of course, you have that ripple in the atmosphere, that little short wave that snuck through that's now working its way into Washington. That brought us our showers and thunderstorms that we saw. Let's get into the forecast. This is the upper level forecast, or the geopotential heights, 500 millibar heights. So the blue shaded areas represent lower than normal heights, or maybe a cooler than normal pattern that could be developing. And the orange shaded areas are higher than normal heights, or bigger high pressure systems, taller high pressure systems that tend to bring us more heat. And Mark, well, can you point out the high pressure system?
Yeah, right where you are, right over the Four Corners.
Yep, this is
Southern Utah, northern Arizona.
The Four Corners High is something that we brought up last week that tends to invigorate the monsoon season out there in Arizona and New Mexico, and sometimes can send, pieces of energy up to the north, especially if we have a trough offshore that can help kind of funnel it up. So that was Wednesday afternoon's forecast. This is tomorrow afternoon, Thursday afternoon forecast. Not much change. High pressure still dominating the western United States.
Still hot.
Friday.
Oh, look at that.
Even stronger, maybe. Saturday afternoon is probably going to be the hottest. That ridge kind of amplifies.
That's 594, 595. I was debating whether we do that first alert weather day on Saturday.
And I'm glad you didn't, because here's my thought. If it's about 95, that's usually our threshold. But if it's one day at 95, it's not too extreme, especially considering how things have gone. So I assume that's what your thinking was.
Yeah, I almost did it. I don't know. If it looks any hotter if it looks 97, 98 again, yeah, our threshold is up upper 90s.
Well, another problem is we could have some, energy moving back in, a little bit of.
Oh, look at that. Another shortwave trough. Boy, that sure looks familiar.
By the way, this is the long range. I can't believe I did that again. Long range trough. There we go. Over the Northeast Pacific Ocean. These are the systems that tend to bring us showers or cooler weather at the very least, more onshore flow. But oftentimes what happens is when you have a long range trough,
Good Lord, Jeff, it's long range.
Okay, we're done with it. If you have a big trough like this,
it's a long range trough.
If you have a larger trough like this parked over the Northeast Pacific Ocean, oftentimes you can have short waves kind of move around it, and that's what could be happening Saturday late afternoon into Sunday morning. But
no freezing Wayne.
Right.
Okay.
So good. Oh boy. All right. Man, I missed you on the podcast, Mark. Glad to have you back.
Yeah. I was always the disruptive child in class.
Saturday night into Sunday morning, we're going to be watching for the possibility of another little piece of energy.
Yeah, you see it there on Sunday.
Yeah, we might see something happen. And it's going to still be pretty warm out there. Here's where we might see a bit of a cool down early to midweek of next week. That trough starts to slide in out of the northwest. And at the very least, that's going to bring us more of a marine layer, I would say, more onshore flow. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that system is working its way into BC, just to the north of us. Man, it would be great to get a little drizzle in the foothills of the Cascades, maybe the Coast Range, dampen things up, perhaps in the metro area.
And I don't know if you have the GFS coming up, but it's much more bullish on the trough, isn't it?
It is. I don't have the upper level pattern, but I do have kind of the way that it'll play out in the 850s. Okay. So this is our current forecast as of Wednesday morning. Probably about 90 or so each afternoon through Friday, then Saturday mid-90s, chance of thunderstorms Saturday night into Sunday. And then we're thinking we'll cool down into the low to mid-80s Monday, Tuesday with some morning clouds and afternoon sunshine. Here's the long-range outlook. This is the Euro outlook, and we like to look at the 5,000 elevation level, or the 850 millibar level. And Mark, what are some of your observations here?
I see, this is when the teacher says, what do you notice on this chart? Right, and you're the professor. So I see a peak there Saturday afternoon, 850 millibar, temps about 23. This is over Portland, so that can get us, if we lose the onshore flow like we did yesterday, that can get us to 98.
Yeah, so I've got anywhere from 90 to 97, around 20 degrees Celsius at 5,000 feet. somewhere between 97, maybe 105 at 25.
But I've got more, professor.
What do you got?
I see next week it's averaging, this is the ensemble average. So next week it's averaging more like under 15 after Monday. Although, so, I think the average for July is 13. Long range average is 13. Wow. So that only brings us down to about average.
Which is, that's kind of crazy. And then it doesn't look like there are obvious signs in the longer range, like as we wrap up the month, that things will really bump up. But we kind of got caught off guard by the last big heat wave.
Right.
I mean, it came out of nowhere. So I would put little stock into this. There's
a pretty good spread there. Basically, those little whiskers, is that what they're called? Up and down, the highest and the lowest points. No, the other.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the box. That's the whiskers. Is that what we learned in stats? Yeah, and so, some are quite high, but the general trend is down. You're right.
GFS?
Kind of the same trend, about 23 Saturday afternoon.
Hot day Saturday. Really trends down. If you watch the mean, the green ensemble mean, drops us below 15 degrees Celsius at 5,000 feet. That would generally mean low to mid 80s, hopefully.
More reasonable.
Yeah. If we can get a stubborn marine layer, one that surprises us, maybe the 70s for one afternoon.
That would be crazy.
GFS is hinting at a little something warmer as we wrap up the month and maybe head into early August.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
This just gives you like a temperature outlook. This is easier to read for those that don't look at 850 millibar charts very often.
For regular people, basically.
Right. And I would add at least a few degrees to each day, or a couple of degrees each day through the first 7 days of this chart, which is showing near 90 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, mid 90s Saturday, and then things trend back into the low to mid 80s next week.
And that Euro surface temp tends to run a few degrees cool, just the way it's calculated, I guess. I did, like the 87, we think it'll be more like 90, or like 80, 93, probably more like 96, 97.
That's why I would always add a few degrees when you're looking at the ensemble, the raw temperatures from the Euro ensemble.
Folks, that's what you have us for. You need the meteorologist. Yes, your app is great, but we are not irrelevant for now.
That's right. And the GFS is similar. So
I was just going to say the Euro. I think in September, when they do the kind of their yearly update of the Euro model, they're doing some sort of brand new fix. I don't think for that specific issue necessarily, but they're some big improvement on their surface temperatures, which will be interesting to see how that plays out winter and summer for us.
Can you talk to the folks over at the IBM Graph?
Yeah. What about it?
It's still running cool.
Oh yeah. You know what? That's funny, because now when I look at that graph for the morning lows, it's more like outlying areas. That's what that's for. It's almost like it doesn't see the urban area.
Yeah, it's not taken into account that we run a little warmer.
And the highs have been regularly running 2 to 4 degrees too cool.
Yeah. Nothing really to show here. This is the GFS ensemble outlook, temperature outlook, and it's pretty similar, give or take a few degrees to the Euro. This is where we should be this time of year. Average high actually today is 83 at PDX. So halfway through July. We're entering the warmest time of the year.
We are mid-July to mid-August. That's it.
So
then it's a downhill slide.
If you like the heat, if you like the warm weather, enjoy it. All right. Your photos. We've got a couple more to show you. This was sent in, I believe, yesterday evening as that monsoonal moisture was coming in ahead of those showers and thunderstorms.
Pretty sunset. I had a producer say, "Mark, can you see the Salem camera right now?" And there was some bright pink, but then by the time I was on, it was gone. But pretty, really pretty.
Guess who was fast asleep?
You were. You were asleep at 8 p.m.?
Oh, yeah. My alarm goes off at 1:15 in the morning.
Jeff, you need to... Oh, my gosh. Is 1:15 really morning? Or is it late night? Because that's about when I go to bed.
Middle of the
Jeff,
night.
You need to get on the evenings, but we already discussed this once. You and I couldn't work together because we would never get anything done. We would just sit there and shout out GFS and Euro numbers at each other, and it'd be very disruptive.
I know.
So
we
have our place.
I'd mess with too many of your graphics, and then you'd probably kick me off.
Oh, yeah, that would be a problem. Yeah.
Hey, thanks to Robin for sending this in. Robin sent it into our website, and this was probably the best shot of the week, aside from some of the lightning. This was sent in by Ellen. I actually posted this on my social media. I love me some good jellyfish clouds. This was sent in a couple days ago out at the state capitol. So what's going on? These are either altocumulus or cirrocumulus clouds. It's tough to tell what elevation they're at, but those are likely, actually.
Ice crystals?
Do you think those are ice crystals, Mark? Or do you think those are rain showers?
I thought they're ice crystals. How high are they?
Well,
depends on the height.
Yeah, I think if they're cirrocumulus clouds, they're probably 15 to 20,000 feet up. If they're altocumulus clouds, they're lower. Probably ice crystals. Let's just assume.
Oh, nice.
But what is so the reason why these are called jellyfish clouds is because that's virga, which is precipitation that is falling out of the clouds and then is basically evaporating before it reaches the ground. Creates those tentacle-like features in the clouds. So thanks to Ellen for sending those in. Those were not the only ones that we saw submitted.
You know what really makes that picture, of course? I'm not a photographer, but I just know if you have something in the foreground like that, you've got the Pioneer statue in gold, you got the state capitol. So, a little scaffolding thrown in always adds something to the picture.
Ellen was sitting there like, I wish they weren't doing construction because this would have been a money
It
shot.
adds something. It kind of adds something to the picture. It really does.
Yeah. So thanks to Ellen and thanks to everybody else that sends in their photos. Again, best way, kptv.com/weather, submit photos tab. Click that. We'll show it on TV, maybe the podcast, and social media. Mark, I think that does it for today. I got a baby waiting at home.
I've
not
got
by herself.
Ready to eat.
She's not by herself. For the record.
She hasn't gotten quite that old yet, right?
No, she's not that old yet.
Today I'm going to go. I need to go ride my bike before it gets too warm. I can still ride my bike just fine, so that's good. On a paved road with the handlebars horizontal. Everybody, send Mark a DM, direct message, and wish him well in his hernia procedure that might be coming up. Well, it is not diagnosed yet. I'm just, my wife, who's a nurse, says, that's not good. Yeah. I hope that's all it is, man. It better be. All right, that about does it. We're done with the hernia talk. It's been great. Thanks to welcome back, by the way, for now. Good to see you. Thanks to everybody that joins us for the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. We'll be back next week. I think Mark will be here too. Yep. Until then, stay cool. See you soon. So stop your waiting and hesitating and tell us